Welcome back to another very special episode of the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by my what the hell happened to his face murder doll and co-host,
Alex Dandino.
Yikes. All right, before we get to that issue and many others, a little business, guys. It's official. The Film Alchemist, your friends here at the Film Alchemist, we're on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Film Alchemist Pod. Guys, it's the best way to support the show. It's also the best way to make sure that this show is giving you what you desire. So for as little as $1 a month, you can join the community that we're forming online. See what's up, dabble a bit, and as you ascend the Highlander ranking system, you actually get to select the movies that you want us to talk about in a Patreon-exclusive library. We have some awesome perks. We're working on some cool stuff over there. A lot of fun things to come. So, guys, again, that's patreon.com/Film Alchemist Pod. Please help us help you. Come on, guys, do it, please. I'll beg if I got to. Please. I'll just do that. I got nowhere else to go. Right?
Ooh, nice.
That's very different.
Richard Gere.
All right. Yeah, a little R gear for the October. Guys, please go to YouTube, subscribe to our channel, Film Alchemist. You can see video versions of most of our podcasts there, along with some other fun video content. You can email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. Make sure you leave us a rating and review, 5 stars, and a couple sentences about why you love spending time with us to help us just Rochambeau the algorithmic overlords that try to oppress us. Also, we're on all the social media you're on, guys. That's it for business. That's enough business, guys. This is the Horror Beast, right? We dive headfirst deep every October, 31 days, 31 pods. We always start with the franchise. I know the abyss is infinite, but we're pretty fucking close to rock bottom.
Close to the bottom on this one.
With today's movie, Curse of Chucky. All right, guys, you know the deal on this show. We try to pick movies that we love and talk about why we love them, right? And I will say I love the Child's Play franchise. And I love Chucky.
I think that's been abundantly clear throughout the run.
That's right. And, in the fun spirit of completionism, I think it's fun to look at every entry in the franchise. If we're being honest up front, right? Because that's what we are. We're friends now, right? We're friends. This movie sucks way more than it is awesome. And I hate to say that because, guys, here's what's going to happen. We're going to try to spend more time talking about what we liked in the movie than what we didn't. And I don't want to hear you guys being like, you guys never tell us your real opinions. You didn't actually like Curse of Chucky. You're right. I didn't actually like Curse of Chucky.
No, I did not like Curse of Chucky.
It's a slog, right? And it's funny because I read online that Don Mancini's theory, right, is that after Seed of Chucky, right? Seed of Chucky, the franchise felt like it had jumped the shark, right? I think that's a really fun, unique, interesting entry into the series.
It's a very, very, very different take.
It's in its own orbit, right? Like, and Don Mancini said that he had heard from fans they wanted to get back to a real horror movie with a real scary Chucky. I understand that. I really do understand that, right? And I think a lot of the horror movie franchises, when they try to bring it back to the horror and really reroute a little grittier, a little more grounded, some of those entries fans don't like, right? I think what you would be able to argue pretty easily is that all of the things that make Chucky and Child's Play amazing are really hard to find in this entry. Alex, hit me with some opening thoughts. Let's air some grievances, and then we'll talk about... There are actually some things I really liked in this movie.
Yeah, this isn't like... We don't do this on this show very often. But, like, I agree. Like, we do get accused of just, like, looking at the rosier side of the...
Yeah, how weird that we choose to talk about movies that we like.
How dare we do a podcast where we... Yeah, how dare we do a podcast where we choose to talk about things we like? Yeah, it's this, like, really fascinating thing. Like, when you get this deep in a franchise and when you do when you do a continuous series like this, you're going to have some something's gonna not gel at some point. Like even great stuff. We talked in horror abysses past. Scream 3 is a great example. Not everybody likes Scream 3. I'm one of those people. I'm not loving Scream 3 the whole way through, but there's stuff to love about it. Curse of Chucky is no different.
My favorite horror film ever, Hellraiser, right? Every year we're like, is this the Hellraiser year? And then you're like, there are a lot of Hellraisers where it's like, I would rather actually have hooks in my nips than have to sit down and try to dissect. I mean,
I would rather sit for my ultimate pleasure than actually have to watch that.
Yeah, by like part 7, Hellraiser's or Pinhead's just like, this time it's only pain. This time it's just pain. I'm sorry.
It's just pain. There's no pleasure.
COVID shipping stuff, we ran out of pleasure. Now it's pain.
But
for
wear
4
a mask
more
and, PP, please.
All right, before we take on Leatherface, Pinhead, goddamn, I'm all over the place. Sorry, this movie's got me rattled. Yeah, this is the thing. This is easily the worst entry to the Child's Play franchise. And let's just talk about a couple of things I think they missed on, right? It just looks cheap and bad.
So the budget's $2 million. Which,
it happens. It's a straight-to-video release, right?
It happens. But it is what it is.
It falls in this weird thing that was happening where it's like, can you just fucking put a color anywhere? Like, just a fucking color.
Yeah.
Everything is so muted and washed and boring to look at visually, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's strange because this is somewhat doing a soft reboot of the franchise too, and they course correct a little bit in Cult of Chucky.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what is wrong with this.
I mean,
but let me tell you one. You know one that really leapt out at me? When she's fighting Chucky at the end, right, and she rips his head off.
Yeah.
Chucky no longer has flesh and blood inside.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an integral part to what makes Chucky cool. Him just being a doll.
Yeah. I think that there's...
What?
And again, like, you look at this kind of thing, and that's, like, I think where you see... It's not the age of the, like, franchise. What you start to see is the, like, depreciation of what the franchise does for its fans. And I think that's probably where... That's where as I agree, that was actually one of those things. It was like, half the fun of watching these movies is knowing that the doll is, like... The Chucky doll's bleeding at some point.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, that's, like, half of the gag. Is, like, he's slowly becoming human. And I'm like... Okay, so now he's just a fucking Skynet cyborg, and that's like the end of it. Like, which again, we'll get to that. We'll get to that later. But at the same time, like, ultimately, it just loses a lot of flavor. It loses a lot of the stuff that we really like about the Child's Play series. While, yes, being this soft reboot, it is also. It's not rebooting the right things. That's how I'd say it.
Yes.
Rather than it being a soft reboot of the franchise itself, it's rebooting all the things that we don't necessarily need rebooted. And really, the way that oh my God, what was the movie we watched yesterday? I cannot believe I'm forgetting the name.
What, the Seed of Chucky?
Yeah, thank you. God damn it. Seed of Chucky is such a fascinating... Yeah, like, it is this, like, weird sort of meta nonsense narrative. Kind of doesn't necessarily... It's very slapsticky in a lot of ways. However, you'd imagine you could still make that into something a little more interesting. Like, it ends very fascinating. Like, there's a lot of fascinating things that you could take, little great threads from Seed of Chucky. Here, I think the problem is that we're just watching a brand new movie without any of the reference from the previous. Like, it's almost entirely its own thing, short of like stitched together Chucky. That's like the only reference.
Yeah,
we really
by
have.
the end of the film, they start bringing us some, hints at, this is
the
Chucky.
You give a little taste from the old days.
The only thing we immediately
Andy.
recognize, right, is we're like, Chucky still has tons of points on his shipping account. Chucky loves shipping himself places.
Chucky's definitely got a like incredible Amazon Prime.
Yeah, that
account.
motherfucker loves to be inside of boxes. I think it's because he keeps praying to Damballa and getting pink socked back into the doll. And I think those little times when he's in the back of a UPS truck, He's like, if only I had died that day in the toy store. That's like his little moments of respite. And he like cosplays being a.
We are
a
still
dead
in
guy.
this we are still in the theory that like we'll always be in this theory that like Damballa is just like constantly fucking with Charles Lee.
Right, but see, this is kind of some of the problems, right? Is that this one that the Damballa just essentially disappears, right? Mm-hmm. One of the issues,
again, one of those things you don't need to reboot.
Yeah, one of those things that's good. And that's what I get what they're saying is that Seed of Chucky, it's like they had done so much good kind of mixing of fun and comedy and this and that. Seed of Chucky, I think you could argue it swayed very heavily goofy, right? But again, never boring. No. Almost always interesting, right? And yeah, so maybe it's a little, do we need the Britney Spears thing? Whatever. That's part of the series. Like, is it great? Whatever. No, it's fun.
Yeah,
but
it's fun.
I think what they're missing is that it reminds me of the Superman argument you have with people, right? He's too strong, so he's a boring character. It's like you just absolutely are just washing over all of the entire character just to try to make a point, right?
Yeah.
Chucky being a doll can still be fucking scary, as we've covered now for several movies.
Yeah. Chucky being a doll is like the fourth interesting thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? So instead of just taking out his like human heart and guts, they took the fucking enjoyment out of this movie. And here's my thing. If you want to make a dark, gritty Chucky horror movie, I would gladly watch that. This movie totally just fails to be interesting at almost every turn. And also, one more grievance before we move on. If you like Curse of Chucky, you do not get to tell me again how bad Chucky looks in the reboot. Whatever kind of Cartman Instagram model duck face Chucky's doing for the first half of this movie is unwatchable. It's really bad.
Actually, that was the most startling reveal in this entire, like, because they have, like, at the very beginning when the little girl's going to the bathroom, like, the first, like, the big reveal. Like, that one, it's not the big reveal, but that reveal particularly, I remember that being like, oh, God, did they change the Chucky doll, like, again?
Yeah.
Like, this is a different, like, and I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, that looks horrible.
Yeah.
I was actually relieved when she started peeling away.
God. Right?
It's like,
and
thank God, it looks like Chucky again.
That's what makes me mad, because that shit's over and out. Like, the scene when he's watching the girl get electrocuted, whatever that, like, close-up was where they're like, we are selling the shit out of this Chucky. It made me so sad in my heart. My little heart was breaking watching that. And this is the thing, right? What you're saying. So he kills the mom at the start, right? Mm-hmm. It's so fast and so off-screen that it doesn't matter. And a lot of Chucky's best moments happen off-screen, right? But we deal with the ramifications usually later, right? This one just goes with, there's this motif they do constantly of people seeing themselves in reflections, right? Which is kind of a fun thing to do with Chucky, knowing who he is, right? He sees himself in a knife, she sees herself in blood, whatever.
Sure.
There is something to be said that we don't really start having any fun with Chucky until well over an hour into the movie, and these are not long movies.
Yeah. I feel like once she peels the latex off, and
then we're doing a Child's Play movie.
Then we're doing Child's Play after. But like, it takes so long to get into it that you're like, you spend the first hour of the movie in this like kind of like terrible haunted house movie that's not really a haunted house because like nothing cool's happening other than just like straight depression from all these people.
Yeah.
Like it's like this horrible dilapidated house and like all these people kind of suck in their own special way except for the kid. Like ultimately
what if you were doing a pornography parody of Clue with no comedy and not nearly enough sexy time?
That's what this movie is. That's what the first hour of this movie is.
Well, because at the one point you're just like, wait, what is the priest doing here in the land deal section of the movie?
Okay, can we please? This was actually I rewound the movie because I was like, I must have missed something about the priest. Like I must have like missed like a thing like he's gotten kicked out of the clergy or some shit, and this is like a halfway house. Maybe that's why the house is so shitty. No,
he's trying to get his cut. He wants 10% of that tithing, so the girl can go to private school. But again, that's just one of those. The payoff for him, he gets his head lopped. All right,
which was cool.
But this is the thing. Why don't we see Chucky in that car talking to him in this movie? The Chucky talking and being Chucky is
pretty minimal,
sorely missing, right? Until at the end when he's just like, here's a backstory, right? And he does the Wayne's World. But it's just...
Which is weird.
It's hard.
This is like the other thing, too, is like it's the Wayne's World thing. It's interesting you bring that up. Because like for me, that is like straight from Bride and Seed, you know? Like those are the bits that we're used to seeing. It's weird that for a movie that's supposed to be scarier and like much more straight horror, that like we don't hear him talk almost the entire movie. Like, and like the first Child's Play, he doesn't talk for a lot of the movie, at least like not like Charles Lee Ray does, but until like, you know, probably like halfway to like 2/3 in. But I think what bothers me more than anything about the fact that he doesn't do that is there are so many great like shticks available. And I think that's the thing, is like the precedent's been set at this point where I'm used to it. I'm fine with it. Like,
yeah,
it's weird that you wouldn't want to keep that going. Like, cause if we're being honest, like that's what's making people come back for Curse and Seed.
Yeah.
Why would you not want to keep that? Or sorry, Bride and Seed. Like, why would you not want to keep that going? Like, I don't know. It's a weird compulsion to want to like reboot your own story when it doesn't really need rebooting almost. And we're not, you know, we don't do that kind of rewriting thing on the pod, but.
Well, it's not even that he wanted to just reboot the franchise, right? I think what is so great about Child's Play is that they never feared going a different route, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been an important kind of lifeblood in the Chucky franchise. This one is just such a weirdly strange misfire for Don Mancini, because his answer was to remove all of the things we like about Child's Play, right? And you don't have to see Chucky killing, right? The most famous Chucky kill, I would argue, in the franchise, when he's slapping that meter stick against his hand, right?
Yeah.
We don't see him kill the lady with that, really. Like, maybe take a swing or two, but that's it. What matters is that little, like, him stalking her, right?
Yes.
That shit's almost gone. And the moments we do see, like, that CG Chucky coming down the stairs, but when the lady peels his face off, right? We're like, oh, so this is the Bride and Seed of Chucky, but that didn't happen. And you start getting confused, right? But at least then he's, you know, stalking up to the girl as he's, you know, taking her eyes. You had your mother's eyes. And you're like, oh, shit, like, this is a Child's Play scene. And from that point on, the movie is dramatically better. All right. I feel like we've done a lot of ranting about I feel like the shortcomings of this movie are legion, right? What I think is interesting is that even in a misfire like this is the franchise misfire. There are some bits that I found really awesome and cool, right? Most notably, Bradley Dorff's daughter being cast in the lead. That's a really cool moment. I thought,
Very
and she
cool.
was phenomenal, by the way. She was
very
kind of the
good.
one actress that wasn't giving me like Skinamax vibes. You know what I mean? Like, she was really good.
Yeah, even the guys were giving me Skinamax vibes. It was not
A lot.
a lot of Skinamax.
Well, there was that moment where it's like, the nanny's mine to cheat with, and that's like, this is I've seen this setup before many times.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. Yeah, she was a very interesting. It's an interesting addition. It's not even that it's Bradley Dorff's daughter either. She's just the character of Nika is just a really interesting entry. And again, like when they get to the ending where they like explain like the Wayne's World bit, it does have a nice connection, a nice throwback. You know, like you're getting a sense of like that this is the movie that like the last 30 minutes is like this is the movie they were trying to make the whole time, and yet we haven't really been able to get there because for some odd reason we've just been like spending time with like I don't know. Like for me, the ending is really kind of indicative of the whole problem, which is like there's just too many people. There's too many people in the house for one. Like if this was just about Nika, and I don't know, you could honestly, you could just, if you're gonna soft reboot, you could just make it Nika and her dad.
I mean, honestly, you can fill the house. We don't need to see them bickering about, well, I've got a nanny cam of you. What? Like, why do we need that? Like, what does that beat add? Like, we already know this girl's trying to steal the house that's custom made for her paralyzed sister because she is, he has to work at Starbucks. All right, we already know this story, right? You know, One of them's fucking the nanny. We know these characters, right? Oh, the priest who wants the money. You don't have to give these guys scenes, right? You don't have to give them moments. Because I agree with you. The movie starts off and Nika and her mom being trapped in this kind of old house, right? I thought there was a really nice balance of she's trying to kind of flirt with the mailman, right? The delivery guy, right? Chucky's, shipping VIP class, carrier.
Yeah. Chucky's personal Amazon Prime shipper, yeah.
Yeah, and so there's this nice moment of her like, oh, he wouldn't. The mom kind of shutting her down. And there's this nice little world building we're doing. And when Chucky takes that away, that's a fine moment. Again, by the time we see the flashback, you're like, the fact that we didn't see the showdown between Chucky and that mom is criminal. Yeah. Is an absolute, someone who is in charge of this movie should have said, go back to the fucking drawing board. And don't give me this.
You the money to reshoot.
Don't give me this. It's Nika's story. You already did the fucking flashback. I need to see the emotional payoff of that moment. Also, because this feels like a thing that Chucky might have had higher on his priority list than the 5th fucking movie or the 6th movie, right? And honestly, for just being an out of left field, another connection to the past life, it works really well. That part is really good. But I thought she brought a real power to this story, right? And her having to deal with, the way people see her as weak and helpless and, her just trying to get by in this difficult moment of grief, it felt very much like the Andy Barclay journey, right? Where people just would not accept that this kid and they wouldn't listen to him and believe him and, oh, you're under stress. Oh, you're too weak. It had all of those kind of things we like. And that's something that Chucky's great on, is because it's absurd to believe that this doll's murdering. So it puts these characters in the kind of horror film where, what if you're the only one who knows the truth, right? It's a, insanity kind of horror, which always works. And she does her absolute best to drag this movie to the finish line. No pun intended. And it just struggles.
No, pun intended, man. Come on.
No, that literally was not. I know every time someone says pun not intended, they did.
Right, I'm saying own that. It was too good a pun not to be
fine.
Intended.
My pun. It came out my lips. I said it. But yeah, I think she is doing so much lifting in this. And she's really good. And her showing down with Chucky and being unafraid to take him on are the rare moments where this movie begins to shine. And yeah, so I liked a lot. I really thought she was a great addition. And again, they pay off this casting enormously in the Cult of Chucky. So, there are seeds of better movies to come. One thing I did want to ask you about, I actually loved the Charles Lee Ray backstory, right? Again, it's shoehorned into this movie in a just bad way, right? Sometimes you want to do something in a movie, and by the 6th movie, there's no good way for this to happen. Mm-hmm. The fact that her dad is randomly friends enough with Charles Lee Ray to invite him to the family cookout and then get drowned by him and then whatever, right? Not great. Not great. Also, the fact that no one, when Charles Lee Ray was in the newspaper constantly for being a serial killer, hey, that fucking guy was at the cookout and the guy died. Not good, right? But the effect of how they used that backstory, I thought was phenomenal. One, it was really fun to see Brad Dourif actually get to play Charles Lee Ray again. I thought that was really awesome, right? But the bit that I really latched onto was this kind of deepening of the psychosis of Charles and his want and desire to have this woman, this pregnant woman and her unborn daughter and her daughter, right? So she already had one daughter at that point.
Right.
What did you make of this bit, actually seeing the kind of psychopath Charles Lee Ray was in the flesh when we've only seen him as the doll, essentially, for the whole franchise?
I mean, I like seeing Brad Dourif just get to do his thing. It's fun to watch. You're so used to his voice, it's fun to watch him actually do what he does. I don't know how I feel about it's odd. It's kind of assigning this weird emotion to what I think is other we've seen so far we've seen so much like selfish behavior almost. I don't know. It's kind of weird to me. Like it works, but it's just not. I really love the backstory. Like this is this is the movie that I'm there to watch.
Fuck, if they just made a prequel with that story, I think it would have been.
Yeah,
really
like that alone. That alone is a movie right there. Like I would have watched the shit out of that. I mean, I liked it. I like that we're planting seeds for more movies, but I also like that they're paying off. I like that the thing that this movie does really well at the end, particularly, and like not a whole lot of the other movies do this as well, is paying off the past considerably. And I'm not even talking about like the appearance of Andy or any of that kind of stuff. I'm simply like the story, and Don Mancini's script does such a good job of actually like paying off emotional beats that we didn't even know were emotional beats, that it's kind of impressive. It shouldn't work, but it does, especially towards the end of the movie.
Well, this is what I mean, though, right? We've seen Chucky as, I've got to get my body back so I can go back to killing, right? We saw that movie 3 times. Mm-hmm. Then we see the, Tiffany, his ex-lover, brings him back. Well, I don't want to be with you. I want to, and then he puts her in a doll. We've seen that movie for a while. Mm-hmm. This one is showing... It's the first time that we've seen Chucky not just as someone who likes to kill by knife and maiming and whatever.
Right.
We're getting a little more into the methodology and how he's hunting for different victims, right? So now we see the mom, and something about her draws him in, right? This desire to have a family, quote unquote. There is something, after having seen Chucky as this, just kind of Bugs Bunny of death now for a couple movies. Yeah. There's something really horrifying to remind yourself who this guy was as Charles Lee Ray. Because to us, he's become a jokester doll with a knife. In seeing this scene of, I'm going to go pick her up from school, and the mom's just, no, you don't want to share her with me. And it's fucking real horror. It's real scary shit happening in that beat. And I thought that was a really fun moment to kind of step away from what the series has become and what we like, not this one, but for the most part, and actually examine who this guy was more. I thought that was a really awesome ad.
Yeah, I liked it. Does re-centralize the horror themes, the horror aspects of the Child's Play franchise in a really unique way, without being, because like it is this sort of like, I think you put it best. It's like a Bugs Bunny thing. Mm-hmm. Like we're just so used to this.
Freddy hit this point. They all kind of go through.
They
this
all
point.
have this like point of like, it's not self-parody, but it is this like point of like, how many more times are we going to see this before it becomes like, it's a desensitization.
How many days in a row can you go to the chocolate fondue fountain at Old Country Buffet before you're like, you know what? Enough's enough. Today's a lettuce day.
Right.
Enough's the fucking enough.
It's this desensitization that we all have because Chucky's a doll that separates the human from our... Mm-hmm. So when you see the flesh and blood person, knowing like what it is, like it's this weird thing where you like think about all, like especially now having watched like every Child's Play movie, particularly up to this point, you're just like, I think about all the things that Chucky did as a doll. You realize this is the same person, like it's just in a much more able body. Mm-hmm. Just because they're killable doesn't mean they're a full-grown adult. It's fascinating. Like it's a really reinvention. This is the part that's the reinvention, the reboot, is maintaining the fear and terror that is Chucky.
This is one of the only scenes in the entire series where we see Chucky hunting a victim for fun on his own accord. Not someone who gets in his way, not someone who's a periphery to a target that he has to get to achieve some goal. This is the one time, I think, in the entire franchise that we've seen so far where we see he has chosen this person out of the wild, out of the whole wide world. And he wants her. And just seeing little things, right? So when sunflowers aren't in season, he fills that basement with 100+ sunflowers. And he talks about these aren't easy to get. And he's doing something. He thinks somehow that this is going to help this poor pregnant woman he has tied up, whatever the hell's been going on with her and him. You know what I mean? There's just a lot of creepy imagery, and they carry it over brilliantly, and this is why I'm fucking pissed about the start of the movie again. Because at the start of the movie, right, all the paintings we see the mom do, they're sunflowers. So the mom who's in her robe painting at the start of the movie is not just some like degenerate layabout the house. She's a fucking traumatized victim, right? And so she's painting these beautiful like sunny meadows with sunflowers. But we find out at the end of the movie that's not why she's fucking painting those, right? She's painting her pain and torment and constantly stuck and trapped in that moment. That is the essence of great horror storytelling.
Yeah.
And why they didn't give us the scene when that mom gets to look into Chucky or Charles Lee Ray via Chucky's eyes and they don't say anything to each other is evidence. I want to submit into evidence fucking exhibit A of the failure of this film. That fucking sucks that we were deprived of that moment, because that's a really powerful fucking scene to just drop in the back end before a bloodless, heartless Chucky just attacks this lady, this kid that he never met. She was in utero, but he thinks he has claim to. Anywho, they had stuff in this film, and Don Mancini is just too fucking good to not have anything right in the movie. It just got muddied up by all this stuff that someone told him we wanted in a Child's Play film.
It's like it's interesting. Like watching this movie, you feel like Don Mancini was told, "Listen, you can come in and direct like 35 minutes if you want. However, we get like the rest of this. Like we have to do the rest of this on our own, and then you can come in and wrap it up if you want." Like it feels that way because like. Yeah, like the latter half of this movie feels like a Don Mancini penned Child's Play movie.
Yeah.
The first half feels like people who don't understand it just know that. Here's what it is. The first half of this movie feels like a movie of people who have seen Chucky movies and like Chucky movies and watch Chucky and read Chucky scripts and watch Chucky movies and like Chucky stuff. The second half is the Child's Play.
You know what the first half of this movie actually feels like? It feels like some casting director had a favor to call in.
Yes.
And they're like, this is my last chance to make this group pop. Yep. And so they just put in all of these actors that, it's not always... in movies, it's hard to say that actor sucks, right? There is a confluence. That's what we talk about, Alchemy, right? Of script and directing and set... produce like everything, right? So just because someone's not great in a movie doesn't mean that they just suck, right? The performances are not phenomenal in this, and I would argue not great material, right? So it's just this confluence of it feels like they're trying to sell us a bunch of shit that we don't want, right? Like it's like, hey, you can have Chucky, but you got to spend, buy 4, get 1 you want for free, and it sucks because, and that's the weird thing, Fiona Dourif is awesome. She could have been the starlet to carry this. And I mean, they continued. And I think had Don Mancini kind of not gotten, fucked and backstabbed out of the reboot, that we would have kept getting movies with her, right? And there was something really interesting that could have happened. Anywho, I also liked the final scene in the courtroom. I thought that was real. Like, she brings up this idea, right, that you never killed Andy Barclay. You're not a finisher. You can't do it. That became a really interesting idea when paired with this Charles Lee Ray's kink is that he wants some kind of like family. Mm-hmm. That became really interesting, right? As she's going out of the court talking shit to the Chucky doll. That kind of shit was great. Like they found the girl. They had the thing to pull on, right? They had the emotional like horror story there. I just don't know what happened. I honestly don't have a great explanation for what happened.
I don't either. I can only say that it feels like the first of this movie is a preamble, and the second half feels like Child's Play. Mm-hmm. Like it's a very weird, kind of disjointed thing. Like, but again, there's stuff to love. There's all kinds of there's some fun gags. Like, look, I'm always going to be a sucker for someone getting stabbed in the eye. I love throwing it. The sound effect of the eyeball hitting each step on the way down is like, that's just. Like it's a fucking bouncy ball. God bless it.
Don Mancini's too good to have an all the way swing and a miss. But there's almost a part of me that makes it worse, right? When you see a horror movie and you're like, this is just not working across the board, you shut it down and you put it out of your mind. You're like, all right, we did that. It's over. Never again, right? Phantom Menace it, if you will. this one had a lot of shit I really wanted to latch onto. And
I think
it makes it a little more sour. Here's a wild one. Here's something fucked up I forgot about. Not only did they just take Dumbala out, but at one point Chucky tells the little girl, there is no God.
Yeah, there is no God.
What? I was like, you are the fucking Holy Grail, the fucking Shroud of Turin, all of the fucking holy bullshit.
You are proof that there, in fact, is a God of some kind.
The most
How
proof.
could you say such?
Yeah, you are literally here at the behest of God, right?
Actually,
Except for this one who's actually
that,
just a hollow fucking plastic doll.
Actually, the moment he says that, Dumbala is just going, all right, buddy, here we go. Prepare thy pink sock.
Charles Lee Ray's feeling all frisky because he had his coffin time in the UPS box. And Dumbala's like, you forgot who runs this shit. Yeah, that was just not great. And then, okay, so we got to talk about this too before we get on to Cult, because I think we've talked enough about Curse of Chucky. Why redo the opening of Bride of Chucky when this Chucky clearly... Because he mentions that he had already had run-ins with the Tilly family, I believe, right? That's where we left in Seed, was Jennifer Tilly and her, flesh and blood son.
Right.
And daughter. Why redo the opening of Bride of Chucky as the end of Curse of Chucky and just totally fucking annihilate what we've been watching?
I gotta be honest with
you. It's always nice to see Jennifer Tilly pop up, but I literally
I love Jennifer Tilly. I do love Tiffany. I think it's a great addition to the cat. Like, it's a great addition to the mythos.
Sure.
Just like I like Nika, I could not tell you. I have no rational reason why it's in there because it's in there here. This is like, because it came up and I was just like, again, it's one of those things like, did I turn on the wrong movie again? Like, what's happening?
Wait, what?
Like it's like,
it's also like, this is like something I love. The opening of Bride of Chucky's great, but this one tastes a little gross and it's not as good.
This is like that Wicker Man conversation we had on the Patreon. Yeah. Just so you know, it's this Wicker Man, not that Wicker Man. Like, you're just sitting there and you're like, what's going on?
If Tiffany had just been running around going, bees!
Yeah, I would have been like, all right, so this is the wrong Curse of Chucky.
Fucking hell.
Actually, that probably would have made that ending that much more interesting. I honestly...
And Tiffany, we know, comes in Cult more heavily. So they wanted to bring her back, but I was like, did you have to annihilate Bride of Chucky to do that?
Like, it just didn't feel... It felt very...
It's wrong.
It felt super tacked on.
I think this is the thing, is that it felt like there had been a little break. What do? We just want to make something. This it's
one of those it's one of those solves you have when you're like, well, we have $2 million to make a Chucky movie. What do we do?
We got to put Jennifer Tilly and throw it. It's
Jennifer Tilly.
What I will say though is, while this movie, like Chucky, is devoid of the heart and guts and the sinews that we like about Child's Play, there are remnants, right? There are things that really work in this movie. And there, again, so I'm not going to call it a complete wash, right? The backstory with Charles Lee Ray and seeing Brad Dourif add to the depth of the depravity of Charles Lee Ray is a really fun thing to add on in the sixth movie, right? They're getting long in the tooth. They're running out of ideas. But as we'll see, in Cult of Chucky, they're like, now we're just going straight ideas. We're not going to connect any of them. No. Ideas! And it's,
Cult of Chucky is like, if they ever made like a short film festival, but it was all Chucky movies, that's like Cult of Chucky.
But again, not boring.
Not boring.
And it's fun. So yes, we will wash away the Curse of Chucky, right? Every franchise has its darkest
Everyone's
day.
got to have one, man.
And it's fine, right? And I would say, even for Chucky, this is not nearly as bad as a lot of other franchises' darkest day. There is still some stuff that's fun to play around with. Ugh. All right, enough of that. We'll be back tomorrow because, as you know, it's October. 31 days, 31 pods. I'm sorry if you absolutely love Curse of Chucky. You can come talk to us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/film Alchemist Pod. You can make us rewatch this movie and talk about it again if you want. Go sign up today. Ratings and reviews. Subscribe to the YouTube Film Alchemist. Email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. Find us on all your social media. Guys, we'll be back tomorrow. We're closing in on the end of the Child's Play franchise. And then we're getting into some of our fun guest shows that we have lined up for you. Also, 2 episodes this month that only our patrons will get. So again, patreon.com/Film Alchemist Pod. Tomorrow.
They're good picks too, man.
Cult of Chucky. Lock yourself in with us. For the Film Alchemist, I'm Josh Griffey.
I'm Alex Dandino.